welcome to my humble abode. Today I'm going to be reacting to some chilling scares and memes that I guess aren't really memes, but like of some real life, like horrible real life stuff. And honestly, I've never heard of it or seen it, so I'm going to be reacting to these and rating them and see if they're really scary or creepy. And yeah, you can rate them with me if you want, but let's figure out what this means, because I sure as hell don't. But I'm excited to know. Let's go. Oh yeah, also if you want to watch this without me yapping, go ahead, check out his channel down below in the description. And yeah, let's freaking begin already. Oh shit, half a human brain?
The "oh that's real nice" meme comes from an episode of the cartoon SpongeBob SquarePants, where Martin, a side character in the show, looks into a toilet bowl only to find a realistic-looking SpongeBob floating inside. The moment itself tied into the overall plot of that episode.
A realistic SpongeBob floating? Man, that was just a regular sponge. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I don't get it. I don't really watch SpongeBob a whole lot, but that's awkward. Real, do you watch SpongeBob a lot?
Bro really thinks he's smooth.
Exactly. They think they're smooth, just putting in a regular sponge in there instead of a sponge with eyes and mouth. Anyway, that's fucking weird.
The meme that came out of it was meant to contrast someone doing an ordinary task like going to the toilet or clocking in at work with an unusual or disturbing discovery. And while most of the posts mentioned completely fictional events, a few instances of the meme format referenced real events that actually happened. This particular incident took place at the Bethlehem wastewater treatment plant on January 7, 2000. A worker named Scott Batchman had clocked into his night shift at around 11 p.m. when he noticed a pink, fleshy object while cleaning out a catch basin. He took it out and rinsed it off to get a clearer look. However, nothing could have—
Ugh, why would you put that up? Ugh, you don't even, you're in a sewage plant already messing with nasty stuff. Why would you pick up something and wash it just to see what it is? First of all, like, ugh. I mean, I get, maybe they have to, I don't know. Maybe that's part of the job, or I don't know, that you
prepared him for what that object turned out to be. Scott was holding one half of a human brain in his hand.
Oh, shit.
It was a bit difficult to identify, but Scott's past work experience at a coroner's office allowed him to confirm that it was real and not a prop. He immediately contacted the authorities and handed it over to them. This discovery happened on a Friday night, so a proper analysis didn't happen until Monday. However, according to initial reports, the brain looked like it was fresh and had not been in the sewer system for very long. The situation became worse when it was sent over to a DNA lab for testing, which confirmed—
Is it an animal brain? That's a possibility. Or is it a human brain and now we have a serial killer on the loose? Which one do you think it is, Ratbot?
Me thinks you should pound that like button.
I also agree, you should pound that like button and light this video up. Because why not? So what do we think it is? Animal or human? Animal, human. Which one?
that it belonged to a person. Unfortunately, authorities had no matching DNA on record, making it impossible to determine whose brain it was.
How do you not have
the treatment
DNA
plant also received waste from 13 different municipalities, so they couldn't link it to a nearby missing person report either.
What?
The question now was, how did a piece of human brain end up in the sewer system in the first place? One possible explanation the authorities considered was that it came from a medical cadaver, suggesting that a medical student might have flushed it down the drain either on purpose or somehow by accident. However, the lack of any major decomposition pointed to a much darker possibility. The brain likely came from the victim of a homicide, with the killer attempting to destroy evidence by dismembering the body and flushing the pieces down the toilet one by one. And unfortunately, it seems their plan worked as intended.
But that doesn't really make any sense. How can you flush body pieces down the toilet, especially half a head? Because that would clog the toilet. So that part doesn't make any sense either. So I'm confused. Maybe they just threw it down a river and then it goes into like the septic waste place. I don't know. But wouldn't that clog the toilet if you like flushed it? I don't know.
The investigators were never able to link the discovery to any reported crimes, leaving the case an unsolved mystery to this day.
So like, and how do you not get DNA off of a brain? And especially if it's fresh, like if it's new. I mean, I guess there could be a human killer on the loose right now, throwing people's brains down into the sewer. Or I guess the person could have died and an animal came and then just kind of like ripped them to shreds, and maybe their teeth like sunk into their skull, and you know, It got done eating and it was full, and there was half a brain left that just kind of like was in like a part of the town that was the sewage drain. I mean, maybe. I don't know how likely that is. But either way, that is fucking creepy. I can't lie, that is creepy. Just imagine going to work and then like seeing someone's half a brain just floating there. That is wild. Oh my god, that is creepy. So I'm gonna give that like a 3 out of 5 Ugly Boogies, because that is weird, especially if it was like relatively more newer. That's very strange and unusual. But I'm gonna lean more towards either an animal attack, or like you said, the first one was like some like science med student accidentally dropped it into a sewer, into the toilet, and flushed it. Although I'm not sure how they would accidentally do it. Ratbot, what are you gonna rate it?
That's so funny.
Yeah, that's not funny. That's sad. That's scary. Creepy, definitely, but not funny. Not funny at all, my dude. Anyway, next.
She doesn't even go here.
What?
The traumatized Mr. Incredible meme depicts a normal-looking Mr. Incredible next to a haunting, uncanny version of him. The template uses a before and after format to highlight how hidden context changes a person's perspective, where people who don't know see a surface-level image or phrase and remain blissfully ignorant, represented by a smiling Mr. Incredible. In contrast, people who know understand the dark, tragic, or disturbing reality behind the subject, represented by his hollow-eyed, traumatized face. This specific version of the meme refers to a silent tragedy that occurred in many parts of Mexico in the late 1980s, and the cause for it originated over 7,000 miles, or more than 11,000 kilometers away in Ukraine. On April 26, 1986, the Chernobyl nuclear plant suffered the worst nuclear disaster in history. During a botched safety test, a massive power surge caused Reactor 4 to explode, releasing a plume of radioactive fallout that drifted across Europe.
I mean, look at that though. Like, look at how much it like impacts though. Isn't that crazy? Like, you think it wouldn't be that much, but it really is. Especially like if it's chemicals in the air, you're gonna be breathing that in and like probably like dying a horrible death, and that's just awful. God, I can't even imagine what those people went through back then. Like, how do you contain that if it gets out? I don't think you can, right? You just have to let it sweep, and maybe eventually it'll go away after many years. But anyway, continue. Something about the milk, sorry.
The immediate blast killed 2 workers, while dozens more lost their lives to acute radiation sickness shortly after trying to contain the fallout. However, by the time they were able to enclose the malfunctioning reactor, it had already spread massive clouds of toxic, radioactive particles across Europe and Asia. Mexico, in theory, should have been far enough from the disaster site to stay unaffected. In reality, government corruption and greed turned it into a problem that ordinary Mexicans were forced to live with in their day-to-day lives. You see, radioactive particles from the Chernobyl meltdown contaminated crops and livestock across Europe and Asia, making a significant portion of their food unsafe for consumption.
Oh, I see. So it's not like these plumes of like radioactive stuff went all the way to Mexico. It messed with millions and millions and millions of people on that side of the world for sure. But if it got in the crops, that means Mexico definitely bought all their products from a country on that side, and maybe they had no idea. I'm really hoping they had no idea that the food was contaminated with this and it was just an accident. But do you think it was an accident?
Can they say that?
I mean, they just did. I just did. They just did. We all did. But like, I am really hoping it was just an accident and not on purpose. But let's find out.
Significant portion of their food unsafe for consumption. Ireland was among the more heavily affected countries, with thousands of tons of milk in the region becoming radioactive. The Irish government tried to get rid of this contaminated milk by selling it to poorer countries. And after getting rejected,
no. Ireland, what the fuck are you doing? Why didn't you just dump it somewhere in like for fuck's sake, just like destroy the milk. Don't sell it to other countries. Why are you trying to fuck them up?
By Brazil, they reached an agreement with the Mexican government to sell 40,000 tons of radioactive powdered milk at discounted prices. The toxic milk reached Mexico in June 1987 and was then distributed across the country by a state-owned company called Conasupo.
But also, why would that country buy the contaminated milk too? That doesn't make sense either. Everyone should have said no. Like, you're fucking with people's lives. Like, what?
It made its way into ordinary households where consumers had no idea they were drinking what was essentially poison. The truth finally came out when Navy Vice Admiral Manuel Rodriguez Gordillo commissioned a nuclear physicist to test the milk. And as it turned out, the milk the Mexican government bought from Ireland exceeded 10 times the permitted limits of radioactivity.
Wow.
The government initially tried to suppress the news by accusing the whistleblower of defamation, stripping them of their position, and putting them in prison. But the backlash got bad enough that the government was forced to issue a complete recall by January 1988. Unfortunately, the damage was already done. Over the following decade, the number of children suffering from cancer skyrocketed drastically. Many endured life-altering deformities, while countless others lost their lives because of it. Even those who survived the initial radiation poisoning now face a higher risk of developing cancer later in life.
Yeah. Alright, well that's definitely how you know that the government knows, because they're trying to hush a whistleblower and be like, oh no, the milk's safe, even though it's not fucking safe and you knew it and you bought it and you let people drink it. So like, I don't understand how people can do that to other people. I don't. I never will. That's fucking awful. But that's like what millions of people just, their lives are fucked up from now drinking all that contaminated milk, which is awful. All right, so what do we rate this? What do we rate this? You know, I'm gonna give this a 5 out of 5 Oogie Boogies. 5 out of 5. Because all the countries knew. The country in Ireland who sold it, they knew. And instead of actually destroying it like they should have, they sold it off for profit. And the other countries bought it for less money for profit, and they just didn't give a shit about their country or the people who lived in it. So that right there is fucking scary. It's terrifying, actually. What do you rate this?
Now that's what I call music.
There was no music. What? We're not even listening to music. Get your head in the game, sir. What the fuck? Again, he ain't helping me. He's just off in his own La La Land world, man. All right, next.
She doesn't even go here.
Reeks of rotting flesh, but I persist. Oh, in a deep puddle. Well, that's nice, isn't it? Ugh. What the fuck?
The deeply unsettling Mr. Incredible meme illustrates a person's reaction to discovering something truly horrifying. The template is often paired with a caption highlighting disturbing events or shocking facts, and this particular use of it is no different. It summarizes the horrific sight a Chinese explorer named Beanbag Adventures uncovered in February 2022. Beanbag's content on Douyin, which is the Chinese version of TikTok, revolved around him exploring abandoned buildings and showcasing any interesting finds. However, one of these adventures spiraled into a nightmare his viewers could have never imagined. The video started with him entering an abandoned hospital or lab of some kind. It was extremely run down and appeared to have been vacant for over a decade, if not more. Broken furniture, torn clothes, and glass jars were everywhere. But what really caught Beanbag's attention weren't these items. He was more drawn to the overpowering smell that was filling the whole building. Curious, he decided to find its source. He followed...
No, if you start smelling like something that reeks like real bad, you run your ass out of there. Get the fuck out of there. Don't even go explore. You know something ain't right, something ain't good. Get out of there. Ugh, I heard the smell of like dead bodies is awful, and it's like one of the worst smelling things you can ever like smell. But like, ooh. So yeah, I'm assuming that's what he would be smelling right now. So like, leave.
The paths where the smell grew stronger and eventually reached a strange, dilapidated room with a pool in the middle of it. He looked inside the pool and before showing it to his viewers claimed that it was filled with movie props. The pool was filled with what looked like the remains of dozens of children floating in a mysterious liquid. He spent barely a minute inside this room before the smell became too unbearable and he had to run out gagging for air.
Oh my God.
The horrifying sight left most of his viewers in shock, with many also trying to figure out if any of it was real. But for now, many accepted his movie prop explanation and didn't question it further, especially since the alternative was far too gruesome for most to even contemplate. A lot of the remains also showed few signs of decomposition, making it easier to buy into the prop theory. However, the possibility of these remains being real became impossible to ignore when Beanbag returned to the same location 10 months later. This time, he decided to explore the rest of the building before going back to the pool room. Unfortunately, the other locations proved to be just as disturbing. I can't show most of this on YouTube, but he discovered rooms full of extremely realistic human skeletons, children's toys and masks, and a few glass jars with what looked like human fetuses stored inside them. Things somehow got even worse when he returned to the pool room and found things that weren't there before, like glass jars and children's clothes on the ground, and most unsettling, a blue tarp partially covering the pool.
Okay, so someone definitely went back in there and put, obviously, that blue tarp over it, but like also added more things. So is this just a person who loves old props and like movie stuff, or is this a serial killer in China and this is just his dumping ground? Right, Bob, which one do you think is more likely?
Let's give it up for the real heroes, reactors.
I mean, I guess I can't argue with that. We are reacting and thinking, trying to figure out what these things are. I agree. More than likely, it is a dumping ground, though, for a serial killer, considering someone is going in there and, like, moving shit around.
It showed that someone else had been in that room in the last 10 months. But that wasn't even the worst part. The most disturbing part of Beanbag's second visit came when he pointed his camera at the pool. It not only contained more remains than before, but many of the previous ones were also noticeably more decomposed than last time, disproving his movie prop claim. Though, given what people now know about the situation, it seemed he called them movie props just so he could feign ignorance in case he ever got into trouble. It also helped in keeping the videos from getting removed from the platform. Put simply, Beanbag and now most of his audience suspected that this room was a part of an illegal organ harvesting operation known as a corpse factory. You see, China has one of the lowest organ donor rates in the world due to cultural reasons. Yet, despite this limitation, the process of actually getting an organ for a transplant is relatively easy as long as you have the money. That's because most of these organs are said to come from China's massive black market, where merchants illegally abduct victims to meet the demand. Some reports also claim—
Well, that's frightening and scary. Jesus fucking Christ. Ugh. But I mean, the theory does stand, though. That makes more sense as to why there would be a bunch of like remains of kids there, because it is a dumping ground and there probably are kids still getting dumped there today, which is that's creepy.
that the Chinese government is somehow involved in this operation as well, with it allegedly harvesting from minority prisoners that aren't even on death row. Even if the government wasn't involved, Beanbag was putting a target on himself by possibly exposing such a large-scale criminal operation. So acting clueless was his best bet. But even then, his safety wasn't guaranteed. Fans were worried about his well-being. This concern became even more substantial when Beanbag's Douyin account got terminated out of nowhere shortly after posting.
Of course it did. They don't want it getting out. Of course they did, because he knows something, and he's showing it. He's showing it. That's all he really needs to do to get in trouble.
The second video. Viewers believed that whoever Beanbag exposed was trying to silence him before the story could spread further. Though, just as they were about to lose hope, Beanbag returned to the internet with new videos. However, the 2 videos of him exploring the hospital were now deleted from his account. Beanbag also kept posting more videos exploring other abandoned buildings and never even brought up the hospital again. If someone was trying to silence him, wouldn't it be easier to make him disappear, or at the very least keep him off the internet forever? So, what's going on here? Well, the internet has come up with many theories trying to solve this very question, but nearly all of them contain contradictions or details that don't align with the known facts. The most popular of these theories is that the room was used to discard victims after harvesting their organs. But here's the thing, if someone was actually running a massive criminal operation, wouldn't it be much safer for them to hide the evidence in mass graves or use industrial incinerators to cremate the remains? Especially if the Chinese government was involved.
I mean, yes. Kind of, but at the same time, they don't really expect people to go exploring in decade-plus long abandoned buildings, especially going down to like the basement where it reeks. You would have to have like a really strong mask in order to even go that far down and go into the area, because most people would just leave by that point. So most people wouldn't even think of looking for it or exploring down there, so they wouldn't have to worry about it. But the fact that he deleted those videos and then never brought it up is very, 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 very suspicious. I agree with that.
As many suspect. As for his account getting temporarily banned, that could be explained by Douyin simply taking it down due to the excessive gore his videos showed, which is also why he was allowed to return after deleting those videos. Alternatively, some also believe that this room was the trophy room of sorts for a serial killer. But the sheer number of victims makes that highly unlikely, even if it was a group of multiple killers. Then there's also the possibility that Beanbag faked the whole thing to go viral, or that it was an art project of sorts. And while he wouldn't be the first one to try something like this, the remains in the pool were way too real to be fabrications. Beanbag would also have to spend tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to commission such a large quantity of props for both videos, all without getting any real return on his investment. So the remains were most likely real. Unfortunately, there's no way for us to determine how they got there. Beanbag stopped uploading in April 2024 and hasn't returned to the internet since. He also never shared the location of the building, so no one else can investigate it either.
Uh-oh, did something happen to him? Uh-oh. SpaghettiOs. Could this all be like a hoax and he just put everything there, bought everything? Yeah, sure. But that doesn't equate to like the fact that there are decaying bodies in that pool down there and it reeks terribly. Could he have lied about the smell? Yeah, sure. But like, I mean, we didn't get to see the bodies, of course, because, you know, I can't show it on YouTube, but everyone else saw it. You know, everyone else talked about it, saw it, and they do believe it's real, which means it's most likely a serial killer's dumping ground or a dumping ground for something. What that something is, we don't know. We probably will never know because he just said he never told anyone where the abandoned building was. So we may never know. The world may never know.
And as far as I was able to find, the authorities never looked into this, leaving this whole thing unsolved, possibly forever.
Well, of course they never looked into it. That's suspicious also. But either way, with decaying bodies and a smell of awfulness, this is a 5 out of 5 creepiness because they were trying to shut him down, and they did shut him down. They did. They silenced him. They didn't want him talking about it. They didn't want him showing it, whatever it may have been for. And if those are real people, may they rest in peace. That's fucking terrifying and awful. And it just shows how fucking scary life is and how scary people can be. Scary. But what do you rate this?
What a bozo.
What a bozo, I agree. Honestly, I think he should have just turned back as soon as he smelt the bad stuff and just left, and he sure as hell shouldn't have went back. Because who knows at that point who or what could have been there waiting for him or someone else to, you know, just stop by. Oh, creepy, creepy. All right, well, those were 3 creepy meme videos that were apparently about real life incidences that happen, but like some of them don't know if they're really real or like what is going on. I mean, they're real, but like, you know what I'm trying to say. There's no real end or like answer to 2 of them so far. So like, what's going on with those? But either way, these were all really creepy, scary, and human beings are fucking frightening and terrifying. That's what we got from this. That is true. But they were fascinating nonetheless. It's fun to learn about different things and like memes, and like, let me know what you all thought about these memes and like these videos, you know, and what you thought of like what the explanations for them could be, what you think they are, what you think they're not. Just let me know. Just let me know something. I don't fucking know. But yeah. But anyway, hopefully you all enjoyed this video. And with that, like it, dislike it, but at least subscribe.